Yeah, you go ahead, man. Let's make it official. There we go, man. You're good.
Just make sure. Can you hear me? Fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Salim Moore, and I'm the academic curator here at the Benton Museum of Art. And I'm so excited to have you all to listen to Manuel López, who is the first artist for our inaugural art hall projects. I'm going to keep my remarks brief so we can get to the main event, but I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement, and I spent some time thinking about what I wanted to say, and I thought for today, just thinking about the land and where we are, I was thinking about Mount Baldy this morning because at the end, particularly in daylight savings time, this time of day, it just glows as it catches the afternoon sun. And the word I wanted to leave you guys with is Yoat, which is the name for Mount Baldy in the Tongva language. And so just think about that, Yoat. And I think part of reclaiming the land or decolonizing practices as we think about them is also thinking about language and returning to those histories. So that's my variation of a land acknowledgement. And I wanted to turn to Manuel, who we have worked together now for a couple years, I think going back to 2022 with our All Paper Seminar, which is a fellowship that we do here at the museum for emerging scholars of works on paper to study curatorial practices, but also to meet with artists. And behind these buildings, it kind of feels like a college campus, and then it starts to dissipate into something called the Wash, which is where it's just like tons of oak trees, and it kind of feels like a little less landscaped than the rest of the campus. And a few years ago, Manuel, for these emerging curators, he just whipped out his sketchbook and did a drawing demo right in front of all of them. And for maybe 20 minutes, it was just like hushed silence and magic. And so it's a long way of saying it's really exciting to have this work here, that magic inside of the museum. And so slowly working your way east, but also bringing a little bit of East LA to us here. And so I'm so happy that you guys are here this evening. And without further ado, I want to introduce Manuel López.
Thank you. So I was just in Mexico City a couple days ago, Tlazocamatli, which means thank you, in Nahuatl, which is the native language of Tenochtitlan, right? So I'm gonna start off with a poem by Seshu Foster from City Terrace Field Manual. Right now we're talking about like land, and I think City Terrace is a pretty special place to me because when my father came from Mexico, that's where he landed. So I'm gonna read something, and I'm gonna put a picture that I think captures the essence of those hills. It's a photograph, not a drawing, but I think it works well. Highland Park lies across hills, fractured by moonlight. Traffic crawls across the city like fleas in jaguar spots. The night with its sirens, hidden stars, big tunnels. A motorcyclist roars away. Van Gogh would recognize the eucalyptus trees in this Carlos Almaraz city. My loneliness on these hills is like a house on fire. Rosalva does not return my calls. We could have watched the dry grass of my life stubble and burn off, a clean white smoke drifting over El Sereno. She has secrets she doesn't want me to know. A century of stone will evaporate with the morning light. the palm trees ragged as lions. So I think words always convey some sort of imagery in our heads. I'm gonna start with a portion of a movie, Stand and Deliver, which was filmed in East LA. And every time that I went to Garfield High School in East LA, and every time that a teacher was absent, the substitute would always play this movie to all of us. And so we saw it like a million times. But the intro, what I find really interesting is the intro. And it's like, I'm gonna play it for you guys. And we're just gonna talk about the river, separating LA from, or dissecting LA in two different sections, right? You have the west side and the east side. And so it became a ritual for people to cross this river back and forth. People from the east side will go to the west side. I know it sounds cliche, but you had like the people that clean houses on the west side, or the jardineros that will go to the west side to cut the grass and then come back. So it was this ritual, and this is obviously, Boyle Heights. And I just forgot about this intro, and I think it sort of reveals something really special, because I'm always walking or driving down these streets, right? And it's from the 80s, and they still retain that essence of it. A lot of has changed. That's like 2 blocks away from my mom's house. That's La Tia, a restaurant that, they serve mole. Whittier Boulevard, this is gone. So this film sort of like becomes like this documentation of East LA that is no longer around. That mural has now been like heavily tagged. I grew up a block away from this. This is the Estrada headquarters, or Nueva Estrada projects. And so I just think it's like this really beautiful reminder of what East LA was, and what it still carries that essence to it. This is Soto and First. And you still see the musicians up and down the street. And this was filmed maybe 35, 40 years ago. This area that just came on, let me take it back. This section right here is the Evergreen Cemetery. And I was on top of those graves drawing the landscape that you guys see on that, on the wall. I was being as respectful as I could, and it's a beautiful view. So we're gonna take it back to Boyle Heights. I was born in East LA. I was born in Santa Marta Hospital back in 1983, and then we moved to Boyle Heights on 8th and Concord. And this was across the street from where I grew up. And I think it was the first time, I was maybe about 6 or 5, and it was the first time that I noticed art or any type of like painting, which was this Raiders mural, and it's still up there. And I just thought it was like one of the coolest things that I've seen as a kid. And there's this like, it's like there's a liquor store with like Los Angeles is synonymous with these little liquor stores, like New York is synonymous with bodegas. I think they call them bodegas. And so East LA has like this long history of like these tienditas that sell like liquor and lotto tickets, and like you get like, I think that you forgot to get at the bigger markets, right? So it's a mural, right? For the Raiders, but it's a mural nonetheless, and so people deal with it on a daily. And then I'm gonna go further back to 1932 when Siqueiros did a mural in Placita Olvera, and he depicted a Mexican or a native Mexican crucified to a cross, and he's under an American eagle, and just kind of like talking about colonization and the way that certain people are exploited for the benefit of a few. And I think a couple of months after it was painted, it was, I don't have it. It was buffed over. It was painted with white paint. And it was left like that for about 60 years until the Getty decided to come in and reveal and take away the layers of white paint. And now it's open to the public, but it's a ghost image of that mural. Orozco made a mural just a couple of steps away from where we're standing in 1930. Fortunately, the mural is still standing. And so these guys being, pretty much legends from Mexico, well-renowned artists, and they were working in Los Angeles. They influenced a generation of Chicano artists in Los Angeles, right? During the Chicano moratorium, the walls of East LA started to sprout murals left and right, calling attention to a people that were being ignored by government, by the popular media, and so they had to basically forge their own identity upon these walls, right? The Chicano moratorium of August 29th, 1970 became a sort of like turning point, and I think one of the major turning points was when the sheriff attacked the people who were peacefully protesting Vietnam, and they ended up killing Ruben Salazar. And Ruben Salazar was this journalist, I think he was Mexican, but he grew up in Los Angeles, and he was denouncing police brutality against the neighborhood and the people who live there. And on that day, unfortunately, he was assassinated by the East LA sheriffs. Him along with two other people. I think one of the victims was a foreign exchange student, and the sheriffs killed him. And as he lay on the ground, people laid the Mexican flag over him, thinking that he was Mexican. Later, it was found out that he was a foreign exchange student, but I think the family loved that Mexicans, they took him as one of their own. This is the incident, firing the canister into the Silver Dollar bar. And so after that, or right around that same time, all these political murals started to appear all over East LA, on major intersections, in, projects. This is in Maravilla, which is one of the oldest neighborhoods in East LA, if not like the first neighborhood. And these were the walls of the original projects. They were torn down, but before they were torn down, I think somebody had painted the mural of La Virgen de Guadalupe, and the city decided to keep them up, just the wall. So that, as a remembrances to maybe those projects, and other projects are across the street. I grew up in the Catholic religion, and my mom always asked nicely from us to pray the rosary with her. And when I was praying the rosary, I think it's a beautiful thing because it gets you in a different sort of like head change, right? It's like meditation. You speak prayers, and it just gives you this sort of like inner peace. And so she had her children, and then my dad would be watching TV on the next room, watching a movie, and it would be like, sometimes it would be like these shootout movies, and in my head I'm like this convergence of like the sacred and like the everyday. And I thought that was really special. Like I still remember that, like the litany, I don't know, I think they call them litanias, which is like you name certain things, and in my head it was just like creating so many images, right? So we grew up in Estrada, and I remember one time the church had what do you call it, like a reenactment of the Passion of the Christ, and that's when sort of like in my head, like these images came to life because there was a man dressed as Jesus carrying a cross, and he was passing right in front of these murals, right? And I must have been 6 or 7, and I just thought it was like really cool. Like it's like almost like a movie, right? Or like this fantasy world as a kid, coming to fruition in front of my eyes. And then we moved to East LA. This is a meat market, and it's covered with imagery. It's a newer mural, maybe from the 90s, but it still carries over like a lot of the symbols that were used in the 70s. And on the right-hand side, you still have the images of Diego Rivera, Siqueiros, and Orozco. Just, I guess, like an homage to those masters or to those people that had a big influence in the development of muralism in East LA. Oh, this is the mural that Siqueiros made at Placita Alvera that was buffed out, and this is like sort of like the Getty revealing the mural that we lost. So it's like this weird idea of like kind of like memory fades away. Like everything in the end just kind of fades away. It doesn't matter if it's like a painting or, we're transient, we're moving along. So I thought it was like something like a poetic gesture or a nod to that mural. So I'm a kid, right? And I'm growing up in East LA, and I'm looking at all this stuff, right? And we're coming from a working class family. My parents, they're working all the time, and museums were never like open to us, like not literally, but it's just like it was out of the question. Like if we were doing something, it was for the whole family, and took to the park, but just like to go to the west side and go to LACMA or something, it just felt a bit intimidating, I guess. So I grew up with cartoons, and The Simpsons played a major role on me, like on my work. So just talking about like the rosary and like how it conjured up images in my head. I didn't grow up going to museums, and I couldn't see like the great landscapes of like, I don't know. I don't even know who to name. Rashid, help me out. Yeah, landscapes. It was like a.
I mean, I was, when I first met you and saw your drawings, I was teasing you, calling you the Corot of East LA.
Corot.
Corot, as an example of a landscape.
No, that's perfect.
That was a perceptual painting, one of like the early
Yeah.
perceptual landscape paintings that went to Italy and looked at the landscape for what it was. And early on, when he was younger than that,
Yeah.
he did some, and then later on, of course, he's famous for his nymphs and in the forest and these kind of a little bit more romanticized.
Thank you, Rashido. So Corot, right? So Corot. I didn't grow up like it was out of the question, or I don't know, just museums weren't like something that we could easily like go to, right? So I grew up on cartoons, and one of the scenes that like, I don't know, cartoons are funny because like you're still portraying the world that we live in, but it's super, super like flattened out and quote unquote fake, right? So I remember as a kid watching this one episode where Homer Simpson meets up with his long lost mom, and then towards the end of the episode, she has to abandon him, and he's left in the desert by himself under a canopy of stars. And as a kid, I remember thinking like, damn, the desert looks beautiful. Like I want to go to the desert, but I'm never going to make it to the desert as a kid, because my parents were working, because I couldn't just grab the bus, right? And so the cartoon sort of like opened up this fake nature to me, right? And I'm going to play you the scene. It's this one right here. Oops. Right, so this is the scene. I don't have I forgot to attach the sound. It would have been more melodramatic. But so like this is me like just looking at it and thinking like, wow, like this idea of nature through the eyes of a cartoonist or an animator, and it affected me significantly, where I'm like I think I was about to shed a tear because it was just so bittersweet. Like I was like, dude, like colors, the composition, like the music, the stars, like it just like everything just came together so nicely to create this image in all its sums, it just became much greater, at least to me, right? And this idea of like nature or the desert, the Southwest, we're in the Southwest. So this idea of like landscape wasn't through corrode or, through, and it was this flatness, this idea of what nature is, because I had never gone to the desert, so I assumed that this is what it looked like, right? And I was disappointed that it didn't look like this, When I went, there's no roadrunners running around and coyotes chasing them, but it sort of like, as a kid, like the symbols of like, the sky is blue, the ground is brown, movement is done by these certain things that animators use to animate something, right? And so I think this is when I started to like sort of notice or how to use certain effects for my drawings growing up, right? And then when I got a little bit older, maybe 7 or 8, I came across this image or this toy, right? And when I saw it, it really changed. I still remember clearly, like looking at it on the shelf and holding it in my hands and feeling the weight and like the design and the box and everything about it. And then I put it back because I couldn't afford it, right? So it created this idea of just like, why did I want this so much? And like, later on, I realized that it has elements that are used in art, right? Like the proportions, the colors, the design. Like it just seemed like the coolest toy in the world. And so those guys. I mean, now I see it as sculpture, and I bought it a couple of years ago and it was expensive. It was expensive, but one of my homies is like, bro, like you didn't buy like an expensive toy, you like bought like a sculpture. And I was like, dude, like, yeah, so that kind of changed the way that I saw this, right? It wasn't a toy, but to me, like, it was actually a sculpture. And it was funny because my mom kept one of my old school books. I was about 7 years old. And on the bottom, well, that's me, and the little kid is me. And I wrote want in Spanish, querer. And I'm reaching for the toy because I wanted it, man. I wanted the toy. So, I mean, I just see like the Voltron right there, right? And then, let me go to and then this is me a couple years ago painting it. I think I'm holding it and I'm happy. So it's like, felt like a full like circle coming around, But again, like I think that robot just symbolized much more than what it actually was. It was me trying to break down how did this object, you have a 99-cent robot and then you have a fucking Voltron, and it's like, why is this Voltron better or look cooler than this cheaper one, right? And then it's like, dude, you go to a store and you see a bootleg one and then it looks cooler than the Voltron. Like, like just because certain elements are like, and not being able to explain that is what really kind of got my brain grinding, like, and there's me, I think I changed it. It was like a gray tabletop, and then I added, this is up at Mission City College right now. And I thought it was kind of cool that they had plugs really close to the painting, and they were blue and red. And I thought that was, I don't know, I thought it was cool. So again, I come from East LA, and it has a tradition with arts. Maybe not academic or maybe not through institutions, but it's always had like a really rich history of culture. This is by Roberto Chavez, and it was painted in 1959. And I think of like the work of Alice Neel, to some extent. And then Roberto was touching base with, there's a tag on the upper left-hand corner, and it says El Hoyo Maravilla Rifa, which is a neighborhood in East LA. So it's one, I think it might be a really old portrayal of graffiti. I mean, right now graffiti blew up. I think the show, oh man, I forgot the name of it. It was at Mocha, Beyond the Streets, I think it was called, Beyond the Streets. I mean, it's become a world phenomenon. And here we have a Chicano painting a tag on the upper left-hand corner. It's like, what the fuck? And then, so El Hoyo is right there, and then this is graffiti in the neighborhood, and you have El Hoyo right there as well. And so I'm looking at this like, just like almost like the quality of the line. Like I'm breaking it down too, like, this is Guzmano, and that's Chas Bojorque, a major graffiti writer, still active. He started writing around maybe in the early 70s, but we still have the line work on the walls. And then I go to Chicago, and then I come across William de Kooning's work, his black and white, and to me, this is reflecting, or those walls are reflecting this, or like, dude, there's something going, these mark makings are going back and forth in my head, right? And then Cy Twombly, going references in my mind, just as a young art student, thinking like, shit, this looks like one of my walls that's like on the streets, right? So this is just like mumbo jumbo in my head, and it's like, I don't really know what to do with it, but like, I'm making these weird connections as a young person. Straight out of high school, or no, like a little bit before graduating high school, we had to volunteer like in order to graduate. So I volunteered at a Red Cross, and I needed to do like 40 hours in order to graduate it. And I went into one of the offices, and I saw this print, and I saw it, and I couldn't stop looking at it. And the scene that we saw earlier in the cemetery, it's this little corner right here. This is the cemetery, Evergreen, right? This is where I did my mural, or my drawing. And this is Roberto Gutierrez, Vietnam vet. He's still active, but to me it was like a major influence looking at this, right? So he's looking at the same things that I'm looking at. He's approaching it in his own way. It reminded me of like these walls, right? Where it's so loose and like attitude, I guess, not really following the perspective. Everything's kind of like going in their own direction. Flat colors that look kind of cartoony to me, but I could recognize it. And then we have David Botello. This is Hallenbeck Park. I grew up going here on Sundays with my parents and my sisters. It's still around. The 5 freeway intersects it and it cuts it. So you'll be playing soccer and you hear like big rigs honking and cars flying by. This is Frank Romero, and this is I think this is the assassination of Ruben Salazar. It's also Frank Romero, and it's just kind of like ties in with what's going on right now. The police like targeting working people, and this is, I think, from the mid-90s, I believe. Echo Park. This is Carlos Almaraz, which was mentioned in the poem. a master of light. And so these were the kind of things that were hanging on that red cross, right? And I was noticing, and I didn't know much about art, but it would stop me in my tracks every once in a while. And then during high school, late teens, about to graduate from high school, and then I came across somebody with this image on their folder, and I became really impressed by it, right? And then I sort of asked a good friend of mine if they knew who this person was, and they're like, "Oh, it's Frida Kahlo." And so I think I spent like that lunch break in the library looking up books on this painter. And that's when I started to do drawings for classmates at Garfield. And I just, I would trade off. Like, they'd be like, "Oh, can you draw my grandma?" And they would give me like money or like a CD or like chips. And so it was kind of cool, like just connecting with people along those lines and getting something in return. This is a print that my mom had in her living room, and I grew up with it. And it was just gotten like, I think like at a swap meet or something, with a cheap little frame around it. It was maybe like 18 by 24. But I remember it well. And then that high school, my last senior year, we went to the Norton Simon on a trip, and I came across this painting that's in their collection, and I was like, "Oh shoot, like I recognize that. It's Diego Rivera." And so it was like making these little connections. I think it's always been about making connections, at least for me. Making connections. And then I thought it was I thought it was pretty cool. I think I saw Raphael as well, which was pretty cool. And then I saw this. I saw it and I didn't know what to think. And I was like, I think I chuckled. I laughed at it, not knowing what it was, not knowing, like, I was like, dude, this is a Picasso. And obviously, like, when you're young, you feel like you know stuff. And I thought, like, dude, like, this is dumb. This is like, I knew all the cliches of Picasso, but I didn't know what he had actually done, right? So when I saw this, it made me laugh. And then what was so weird about it is that it stayed in my mind. So like a week passed and I would think about it and then just chuckled. And then like 2 months would pass and I would think about this and I'd be like, "That's fucking dumb." And then 6 months would pass by and I'd be like, but then I started to think like, dude, why is this haunting me? Like, why is it bothering me so much? And I think it was the idea that he fractured something that I knew what art was. He questioned my idea of art. And so that was summer of maybe 2000, 2001. And I think someone gifted me a Diego Rivera book. And I went through it and I read it and I got it right away, right? Like, okay, like I get it, like muralism and blah, blah, and like this is cool. And in that Diego Rivera book, there was a scene where Diego Rivera got into a fight with Picasso because Diego Rivera accused Picasso of stealing a technique that Diego Rivera had developed. And so I'm like, oh shoot, like Picasso, I went back to that original, to this, and I'm like, oh shoot, like it's the same guy that's in my head, So I think I had the receipt for the gift and I returned the Diego Rivera book and I swapped it for a Picasso one. And I'm like, I don't understand what this guy's trying to do, so I'm gonna try to understand what he's doing. So I started to read up on him. And then 2003, there was this painting from the Pushkin came to LACMA in 2003, and it was this little tiny piece, and it said Picasso, and I was like, dude, it's the same guy that did that weird head, and this thing just really fucking like, I was like, dude, this is so beautiful. 1901, and so it was just like, oh shit, like this guy is doing something that I'm not really understanding, or he's definitely doing things that are interesting. There's that LACMA, and I seen it in books, so when I saw that LACMA, I was like, oh shoot, like there it is, in person. I saw the Matisse as well, and again, this type of painting I was not used to. So it was just really, it was just so loose. It was fresh. It felt, even though it was 100 years old, it just, to me, it just felt, I don't know, like it felt fresh. And then I started to buy more art books, and I started to go like into this kind of thing. And then like at about 22, like this tall art, Riders in the Sky. And I still remember seeing this painting in a book. I'd never seen it in person, but it really, like the idea of like what art is or what painting is really changed because of this, right? It was this flatness, he was embracing this flatness that I recognized, right? This is Peter Doig in the heart of San Juan. Again, the flatness, it's fresh, it's contemporary, and I was really starting to dig it. Hockney was a major influence as well. Like everything just started to like, I was like, dude, like this is like really interesting stuff. This is, I could get into this, right? And then my late teens, I was reading books that were making a big impact on me. Catcher in the Rye, I think I read it in like high school or middle school, but it left a big impact. The Elementary Particles really changed my perception of like, I don't know, it just really depressed me. And I thought that was really interesting that literature has the power to do that to you, right? Like a painting could do that something to you, literature could also do something to you. And then I came across El Llano en Llamas by Juan Rulfo. He grew up in the same place where my parents grew up in, which is in Jalisco. And I recognized the language in his writing. Like I could imagine the accent of his characters via my parents, via my uncles, via my aunts. So I thought that was really special. And so literature, and then there was also certain sections that just really left a deep impact. And like I would read, and then certain lines would just seem very poetic. And again, Roberto Bolaños with The Savage Detectives, and then looking at these type of books too, and knowing that they had like some sort of like power within them. And so this is like right when I went to, before I went to Chicago, was like, this is what I was dealing with, right? And then I'm gonna go into Instagram. And after I got out of Chicago, I was doing big paintings. I don't have any pictures of those paintings because I don't know, like it was just like a weird time. We were just working, and I didn't even have a cell phone at the time. I spent 10 years without a cell phone until somebody made me get one. So I was doing big paintings in Chicago, right? Like 7-foot, super abstract and colorful. And I was thinking back to those walls, like I was like the buffs, you know, like, and all that stuff. And so when I got out of Chicago and I came back to LA, that was maybe 2011, I wanted nothing to do with painting. Like it was just like, I think it was a 2.5-year program, and it was just painting. And then I would go into the studio and we would talk about painting. And then we would look at painting, and then we would talk painting. And then, so once I got out, I was like, well, I wanted to do with this. Like I was still digesting all that stuff. And so I didn't want to do any paintings. So my idea was like, I just threw away 3 years of my life doing something that I didn't want to do, right? And or that I kind of regretted. And so I think a year went by without producing any work, and it was just kind of like horrible. And so I was like, well, what got me into this ordeal? Like, how did I arrive at this place where I spent 3 years at one of the best schools of art, you know, SAIC, and now I don't have the will to paint, or I don't feel like painting. How are we on time? Am I talking too much? We're good. All right, cool. How much do we have? 10 minutes? All right, cool. So I'll close it pretty soon. So I came back, and drawing got me there, right? Because it was always the thrill of just drawing, right? As a kid, drawing. And so my father used to have a bank on First and Indiana that overlooks the landscape of East LA, right? You have a beautiful view of El Pino. And on a random, I just went and I had a piece of paper and a dull like pencil, like, and I drew the landscape, and it came out really. I don't know. I don't like. I've been drawing all my life, and I took a bunch of classes at ELAC, and all of a sudden, this drawing just came out so naturally, and it was so different because it wasn't relying like on other traditional methods that I had learned in art school. It just felt like it was me, and so I looked at it and I'm like, okay, let me try to do this again. And I went the next day, and I went to the art store and I bought like a good sketchbook and I bought good pencils, and I was like, I'm gonna feel like an artist. And I drew, and it was a really beautiful drawing, but it didn't have the same energy as the one from the previous day. And so that got me excited. I'm like, dude, let me try to recreate this. The feeling that drawing had, where it just came out so naturally, let me try to reproduce that again. And I went again and I failed, and I went again and I failed, and I went again and I failed. And it was just failure after failure until I got it. I got another one, and I put it away. I got rid of the other ones, and I went again and again and again and again. And then I got another one. And so it became this thing of like trying to chase the dragon, right? Like these drawings that obviously they weren't coming easy, but I think that was the gift, that they weren't coming easy. And so for the maybe 3-4 years, I started doing just all these landscapes. Let me see. All right. So it's just line work. I wanted to eliminate stuff that I felt like was just like too much. And at that time, it was just sort of bells and whistles. I wanted to get to the core of like what drawing is, and it's just basically mark making, right? And I wanted to eliminate shading. I wanted to eliminate stuff that just I felt it really didn't need. Did I just like it? So this is just a glimpse of just like, I don't know how many, I made a lot of them. But again, it was just trying to capture through line. Oh, did I go backwards? And then I would kind of like inject a little color into them, right? Super simple, just, I think I had seen the work of Egon Schiele, and I became a big fan, and I thought it was masterful. And I was like, dude, let me try to get to that point. I think if you're able to say something with the least amount of words, which I'm not doing right now, but the drawings, right? I'm using them. Lines are like words, so I was just like trying to eliminate them, and so super minimal. I think that's probably one of the first ones, which I didn't really like that much, but I think it was done in pen, but it's just, trying to do this. And then, I've done a lot, huh? It's Mexico City right there. Oh, and then so going back to like the thing with the mural, my bad, I think I just went on a tangent, but with the mural, Metro invited me to do a drawing for them, and I did the scene of El Pino. I'm trying to look for it. Did I pass it? So also Los Angeles Times Magazine commissioned me to do, I think you kind of see it right there, to do a spread for them. And thinking about the idea of erasure on murals, I made a drawing on a handball court with charcoal, which is super, super fine. It just like the wind will just literally erase it. And so I was going back to like, just kind of like reference, having a dialogue with the Siqueiros mural that was buffed. So I wanted to, like when we think about murals, we want them to last a long time, but it's out of our control. And so I kind of like wanted people to have like a handball court or a handball game while this was on the wall, and then having them sort of erase it. So it's just like this sort of idea of like what a mural is, or how it sort of being in its own environment will kind of alter it and even erase it, right? I think this is a part of it. So this is Chris Arias and Rafa helped me document the process. And this is me. I don't draw that fast, but we just time lapsed it, right? And let me see, where's the Metro one? You know, Metro was giving me a hard time because they didn't want me to post it, and they were so, oh, you can't share without our permission. But I think I shared it without the permission, and they got mad. And one time they told me to bring it down, which was kind of messed up. But whatever. I guess that's why I don't have it here. But so the Metro commissioned me to do a landscape for them that they were going to put inside the buses on top where you hold on to the rails. And I did it for them. And when Victoria and Salim offered me the hall, it was 18 by 24, and it was a section, just a small section. I think I posted it right here. So it was, let me see, where are you at? Oh, right here. So it's basically this. It was just this, right? So when Victoria and Salim came up to me, they're like, oh, we want you to design the hallway. I'm like, oh, dude, this is perfect. I could use this and add to the left. And then, oh, Manuel is going to be 80 feet plus. Well, let me add another portion, right? So this guy was 96 inches across on paper. And then I added more to the right, and then more to the right. And then there's the doorway, and then Gary's like, oh, we need something to unite both portions. So I put a LAPD helicopter behind the hill. The 10 runs east-west, and there's always like police chases, and you see the helicopter going up and down that freeway, right? And then we have El Super right there. That's 5 puntos, and so, you know, everything just came so organically, because I guess just the idea of like working in the neighborhood and then being approached by different institutions like Metro and the LA Times and then the Benton, you know, like giving them different projects, but then right now for this is the combination, right, of something so great. So when I told them like everything, like they didn't even hesitate. They're like, dude, it sounds like perfect. And I was like, dude, this is so good, because it actually like really, really germinated in such an organic way, right? And so what I have on top of that wallpaper is just like these colored paintings, right, that are made from those particular drawings back and forth, right? So these guys right here. And so, yeah, I think we could end it there, because I think I don't want to go over time, and I think are we good? Yeah, are we good? Thank you.